Welcome to Grumpy Old Avatars with your hosts, Malvin Zerator, Deuce and Dragonash, and Slim Warrior.
Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. If you're watching on the web, you'll realise this is a restart because we screwed up the sound for about 5 minutes. Anyway, welcome to the Grumpy Old Avatars, the show where we like to wind down at the end of the week and get all grumpy and, well, lightheartedly grumpy anyway. And, well, we're sort of half excited this week and half grumpy too because we're in the middle of a huge, stressful Virtual World's Education Best Practices Conference that's happening here in Second Life and projected out onto the web for your delight and everything else too. We're turning in on ourselves a little bit this week. We'll be talking about all sorts of things, although I'm sure education will be on the agenda. But as usual, I'm joined by my wonderful co-hosts. Firstly, Deuce Dragonash. Hi, Deuce.
Hello.
And, of course, Slim Warrior. Hi, Slimmy.
Hello.
Now, they always sound that way, folks. Don't worry. They're not depressed.
Oh.
They're just grumpy. And we're going to get them even grumpier. But to help us, we've got two rather special guests. They're great friends of ours, in fact. Our first guest is frequently behind the camera. And believe it or not, he's actually, half of him at least, is actually behind the camera now. But he is the CEO of Metaverse Television itself, Robustus Hacks. Hi, Rob. And Rob is silent. Just when we get the sound working, Rob is silent.
I'm here, sorry.
Rob says hi.
Hi, Rob.
Rob says hi, and he's very grumpy today.
I can't tell you how happy I am to hear him mess
Everything
up.
working, that's why.
You what?
Okay, that's just what we want anyway. And before we go any further, my final guest is a resident person here who always has something to say. I won't say he's talkative, I'll just say he talks. It's Barnard. Hi, Baird.
Well, thank you. That's quite the compliment coming from you, Mal. Thank you.
Yeah, we know now. I'm going to shut up now, see, talking, which is
You're
what
not allowed to.
Not allowed. Not allowed. Oh, dear, dear, dear. Well, I'd like to start off by moaning a little bit about educators, but also I kind of like them too. I mean, we've had a very exciting couple of days and we're not near the end yet. But for people who pretend, well, I've got it all wrong. They hardly pretend to be educators. Their profession is education. They are educators. But some of them don't seem to be very willing to be educated. Like, tell them how to stand, tell them how to press a button, tell them to practice, tell them to get here on time. Educators, well, they're not even a word of it. So I'm a bit grumpy with educators because you think that, you know, they're the ones that talk at other people and you think they might be willing to be talked at now and again. So that's my sort of grump for the week. Let's find out about everybody else. I'll start with you, Slimmy. What you got?
I knew you were going to do that. I knew you were going to ask me what I was grumpy about this week. Oh, I'm grumpy about an awful lot of things this week, but the one thing in particular that has annoyed me is listening to the radio and listening to the number of DJs who, when they're playing a track, and you really get into the track that you're listening to, and then suddenly about 2.5 minutes into the song, when there's a good minute left to go, they fade it out and start talking. And they do this repeatedly through the whole of their show, and it so irritates me that they can't let the song actually finish before they start talking.
You know, that's one that really, really bugs me too on the radio. You know, radio's playing, you're just getting into the groove of something you really like, and in comes this unbearable asshole talking nonsense.
Yes, yeah, and they completely ruin the whole vibe. Or DJs or they're playing dance music, which of course is my thing, which I really, really like. And then they'll stick in something like from the 1950s in between each track. So you just totally lose the flow of the whole show. It's bad DJing, really.
This reminds me, this isn't a grumpy thing at all, but I think I'd really like to get it in. You had some really wonderful news this week, Slimmy, didn't you? Talking of dance tracks and hoping that the mix you're going to have done is not taken over by a grumpy DJ.
Yes. What, do you want me to make an announcement?
Yes, please.
I think.
Well, I'd like to really grumpily announce.
Oh, hardly.
Actually, no, it's a lie because I'm not grumpy at all. No, I would. All right, go on. I'll announce it then. It's that this week I have been given the amazing opportunity to have one of my tracks produced by a DJ called Andy Moore, who is currently number 15 in the top DJs in the whole world. He's going to be producing one of my tracks and putting it on his album. So it's not a grumpy announcement at all. I'm absolutely ecstatic over the whole thing. So that's a good thing. So I'm going to be actually talking to him a little bit later on this evening.
Well, that is
Happy
wonderful.
dabby, darling.
I hope we don't get you too miserable and depressed before that talk.
Oh, I can always find something to be grumpy about.
Yeah.
But no, on that aspect, I'm seriously not grumpy. I'm absolutely thrilled. It's a really wonderful opportunity to scare the living daylights out of a DJ. What more could I ask for?
Absolutely. And on your behalf, I'll be grumpy in advance for the radio DJ that talks over your mix when it's done.
Yes.
That's right.
Absolutely.
Okay.
You can phone him.
Susan, what's on your mind?
Oh,
Particularly grumpy.
where should I start?
Well, this sounds good.
Right.
Go.
I have to start at kind of 7 o'clock in the morning when the drilling started outside my door.
Mm-hmm.
Then I walked into my office. Well, I have to walk past the office to the kitchen. So, of course, I inevitably put on the computer. So I didn't get my coffee until later. Then we went to, what did we do? We went to the educational, the virtual world best practices in education to do some filming there. And it was as if BT, yes, and it is those initials again, folks. It's as if BT knew that we had to be doing some work and switched everything off. And my computer hung all day.
Isn't it just typical?
I'm exhausted because actually what should have been, not, there is always a problem, but what ought to have been a fairly, not easy day, but, fairly roll along sort of day, turned into a living nightmare. Not helped by things
What is it about these ISPs? I mean, they really haven't got their shit together, have they? And they lie because they say, oh, we'll supply you with, X amount of megabytes per second upload, download, blah, blah, blah. And actually they don't. They do lie because when I was in the UK, I had exactly the same with BT, this telephone company, and they promised me that I would get up to 8 megabytes, and I lived about literally 600 yards from the telephone exchange, and I was lucky if I got one megabyte.
Yeah. And then you ring up, they say, it depends how far you are from the exchange. Hello, I can go out and touch the exchange. I'll go next door and plug the bloody thing in, shall I?
It's just like, I'll come and bloody move in there.
I think I should point out to our viewers that we are talking about a company, particularly an ISP company called BT, stands for British Telecom, and they are the biggest dinosaur here in the UK. Those of you not in the UK, just in case you wondered what we were talking about, that's it. They treated me, oddly enough, fairly well today. I didn't have any glitches with broadcast, but like Doozer, my alarm clock didn't go off on time, and I ended up falling out of bed 10 minutes before I was live on camera, with the camera rather. And the coffee that I normally drink first thing in the morning did wait for a couple of hours, if I recall. So I'm with you there, Doozer.
I've got another moment.
Walking around half asleep. Okay, well, let's go over to our guests. I think I'll start with Baird. Anything particularly on your mind that is making you grumpy, Baird?
What's making me grumpy? Couple of things. I guess I've been keeping track of the state in Japan. I have a few friends over there, so was a little frenzied on the Friday the quake hit and the tsunami hit.
Yes.
Yeah.
He was okay. He's in the southern prefecture. And then the nuclear power plant incident, obviously, which is ongoing. It's not so much that makes me grumpy. It's more that I guess the general reaction of, I don't want to call them trolls, I just want to call them sort of, well, no, I'll call them morons. There's a lot of morons on these chat sites asking really stupid questions and overstating a lot of, well, just dumbass, like we're 12 years old. And probably they are 12 years old. It's probably another thing. And then the third big thing that makes me a little extra grumpy is that, in fact, in my own backyard, another nuclear power plant, in fact, had a small leak on the Monday, but they didn't. They failed to announce it for about a day and a half. So the locals never got told. It's literally, I'm in a very, very big city, but it's a nuclear power plant, so who cares? Like, it's not that far from me, even though it's maybe like a 40-minute drive to it.
Is that where your hair went?
Yeah, exactly. That's why I'm here today.
That's why Baird's avatar eyes are glowing.
Exactly.
I'm a bit worried now. I think we ought to evacuate the studio.
I glow in the dark.
Active avatar presence.
Yeah, if you switch to midnight, you'll notice I'm glowing in the dark partially already. So,
but I'm so with you on what you just said, Baird, because I have friends in Tokyo. One family, they actually flew out. They did. They got out quite early on and flew to Canada. But just watching the chat feeds on is it the NHK website?
Yeah, NHK World is on stream now, and they're just morons in there.
Yeah, it's the number of spammers on there, and with absolutely no regard to, this is how people are actually communicating. I mean, with, the fastest forms of communication from people actually in Japan to the rest of the world were through Twitter, Facebook, and logging onto the internet. And it was awful because you're trying to get the sensible news out of the absolute rubbish that was trolling by.
Yeah, I actually managed to find, although there are a couple of trolls on there, but they tend to be modded out of there pretty quickly or sort of nullified by the group. But there's a fellow called, it goes by, I can't even remember his name because I've been watching it for so long. I'm very tired right now and a touch grumpy, which is apropos for this show. But there's a guy who has a channel called Yoko News, and he's Japanese. He had spent about 7 years in Los Angeles, and he'd gone back and he had created this channel to sort of talk about fun stuff about Japan in English. And he ended up putting up an emergency Ustream before NHK World Service had anything up on streaming available. So he was literally
your Kisho.
Yeah, but he goes by. I could pull it up, but it would mess with my stream, my bandwidth right now. But I will. It's on my Facebook maybe. But he has a Ustream site and a website, obviously, and he posted all the emergency stuff like on the splash page, so you can get all the Japanese in English, like up to date, stuff with Google search find, and I guess during the peak tsunami period, he had 23,000 people on. And people were helping out locally and pulling in actual, usable information. And then he was watching, because he had this set up for his internet sort of news service site. He had like 20 screens up, so he was like watching all the different Japanese TV channels and getting all the different info, and then reading it in English to us. And literally, it was the only sort of like consistent translation of what was really happening from the front lines, as opposed to, World News Service, which was like, you name it. Al Jazeera English was pretty decent during the actual moment, but it's not that hard to cover like an earthquake and earthquake footage and tsunami footage, right? And then after that, the details start getting a little hazy, and they start playing the same loops over and over. So when the rest of the world is freaking out, meanwhile, the Japan news at least is filling you in on what's really happening. So that made me a little bit grumpy too, which I shouldn't be surprised, but it kind of cheesed me and I'm Canadian, so I was a little bit cheesed even by the Canadian coverage.
I think it was the same everywhere, though. Everybody wanted information. It was trying to find, the right information, sifting through the rest of the shit that everybody was spouting out when they were trolling everything.
Yeah. So that I guess that's my main grumpy thing, and then of course life goes on. So it was funny, I'm seeing online and Facebook, everybody still goes on with their lives, and then it was funny because I was so intensely online paying attention to Japanese news that I didn't even, the nuclear meltdown in Japan, that I wasn't even noticing the nuclear incident in my own backyard, which is pretty ironic.
Did you catch the CNN one where in the middle of all of this happening, when they were actually filming the tsunami live, and I caught it. I was up at 6:30, and they obviously knew something was going to happen because they had the helicopters out filming. And the CNN reporter, she started making this joke on air, live in front of everybody, about monster movies.
Oh, I heard that. I was watching Al Jazeera English. I was watching Al Jazeera English live, so it was the same. It was the same helicopter feed, I think. But I didn't hear the joke. Yeah, but I heard about the joke.
No, this actually just brings home the frivolous nature of some people, because much as this is sort of tragic and everything, I've been really grumpy about it. I tune out on half the news because it's the same clips over and over again, and they treat tragedy as entertainment almost. They've got to keep it top of the news, even if they're telling you what you already know and regurgitating the same clips. And
world's ending.
I'm going to sort of bring Rob in here actually, because a couple of hours ago, NBC broadcast in World an interview with Philip Rosedale, and on the webcast there was a chat room there, and all of us in Second Life here know Philip Rosedale. It was Philip Linden, the creator of Second Life, but he hasn't really been CEO for about 2 or 3 years, I think, and even though he popped back briefly. And what amazed me was the moderators in the chat room there actually had to say, "Can you keep on topic, please?" Because there were a whole load of people asking questions as if Philip was still the CEO of Second Life. And, clearly he isn't. He was reminiscing a bit about it, but he was talking about other things. And he certainly, I couldn't believe this chat room was, when are you going to fix the graphics? When are you going to do this, to that, and the other? And I thought, what has this to do with what we're watching? So it made me a bit grumpy because people just don't seem to click, I thought, why are they here watching? If they think if they don't understand where he's coming from and where he is these days. But anyway,
they've got nothing else to do. That's why. Because that's all they think about.
Yeah, maybe. But anyway, Rob,
you could tell. You could tell by. You could tell that he just wanted to talk about the Love Machine. He doesn't want to talk about Second Life anymore. But I think most people. I don't know. I personally found. I'm impressed that Philip keeps looking for new ways to make things more efficient and better, and I admire that about him. And I don't know whether the Love Machine's a good idea. I'm not a coder. I'm not really, those kind of things don't interest me. So I was kind of a little bored by the discussion about the Love Machine.
Yeah, I think you have to be of a particular ilk, as it were, to latch into that. I sort of, I do see parallels with Second Life on the collaboration front. He built a platform where we created it. We go in there, we get together, we collaborate, and he's obviously now working on a much more sort of serious sort of business model where he views future economies as much more collaborative rather than, the sort of pyramidic structure we have now. But so it remains to be seen. But, it was interesting for that. But, we knew in advance we weren't going to find out when the graphics in Second Life are going to get better.
It rather worries me that you didn't understand what the Love Machine is, or people don't understand what the love machine is, because I thought he was fairly graphic about what it was today.
Oh, I mean, I understand the concept of it. I'm not. I can't say I'm going to sit there and tune into a half-an-hour discussion about it. I don't know. It's not that I didn't understand it. I just didn't find it interesting.
I think one of the strangest
thrills me.
I think one of the strangest things too is, people sometimes criticize his naming of Second Life as, or what was Lindenwold rather, as Second Life, and all the, obviously people now associate Second Life with good and bad things because it's become a name in itself, but the idea get a second life. And I must say, when he went off and started a new company and he called it the Love Machine, and then we find out what it's doing, there's this psychological sort of mix match in my head, quite, I sort of vaguely understand it, but, the Love Machine,
Sounds like one of Stroker's products.
Yes,
exactly. I was out working this afternoon, so I haven't caught it yet. Did he actually mention that any of the places using Love Machine? Because I remember hearing that Rose was using it at Dig for a while. I don't know if they're still using it, but if you go to the Love Machine website, they have a list of clients, and it's quite a formidable list. Even though it's sort of early days, who are adopting, the sort of principal way of working, which they're sort of packaging and pitching to clients, over and beyond what they're doing themselves. So, they do seem to be getting somewhere. I mean, time will tell whether people stay with these kind of systems. But
well, imagine a world where every company uses the Love Machine. I don't think that's gonna. I don't think that would be a good society where everyone is competing for every cent, and there's no health insurance, and there's no unions, or maybe for software or programming, but I can't see that system working in a normal job situation.
Well, one of the things he said, because he was actually asked one of the questions he was asked, I forgot what triggered it, but he said, "Oh no, there's lots of people who won't be suited to this. It's just my thing. It will click with some people, and other people have no use for it whatsoever." And it's. We know Philip from Second Life, don't we? He's a visionary, a bit of a dreamer. And, he's, it's serious economics, but he's a bit of a dreamer there too, I think. It's visionary stuff. And, it's like a small spark. Have to see how it pans out for him, or how it changes and evolves. Still, I wish him luck. But we like Philip. He did create the very place we're sitting in now, quite frankly. So,
yes, and he ran from it screaming.
Yeah, I know.
That's because we're all horrible to him. That's why.
Yes. He does get nervous about coming in worlds because of what happens when he does. I don't know. Anyway, what else have we got on the agenda? Tell me, everybody here, what thoughts have you got on the state of education? Just generally, particularly in virtual worlds, of course, but generally, because that is really the hot topic of the week, isn't it?
I like the way it's progressing. I know a lot of people say that, it's like walking against a hurricane for some of these, people who are trying to push it into the systems that they work in. But I think society as a whole, because we have so many gadgets and software and social software that's sort of coming into the mainstream culture, it's probably getting a lot easier in many ways to educators than it was, say, 5 years ago. That's what I've heard in bits and pieces from other, virtual world educators that I've talked to. But it's still a long haul.
Yeah, they have been picking up on this, although it's funny, a lot of the, as information really, a lot of the original educators who latched on, to this, the pioneer educators, if you like, are now moving off into open sims and other grids and things, although many, like us, still keep a presence here because we think of it as home. But, there are, the evidence is that a lot more educators are now coming in because at first sight, they hear what's being done in Second Life, and they have a look around, they investigate, and then suddenly, oh yes, they see what they can do in here. And so there's no shortage of them, despite the fact that our good friends at Linden Lab haven't exactly been encouraging them in recent times. What do you think, Rob, education-wise? Oh, I think we lost
Well,
him.
I mean, I think Linden Lab would be stupid not to keep the education discount. I mean, think about a generation of kids that are brought up knowing what Second Life is because they learned about it in school, or they used it for education. So I think in that respect, it was a bad move by the lab. My one grumpiness about education in Second Life is that it does seem like some of the educators here are more interested in, you know, their own kind of social status and their own, you know, they're almost too wrapped up into Second Life and too wrapped up into the socialness, the social hierarchy of Second Life, that it's almost more about them as educators than the students that they're educating. I mean, maybe that's just an impression I get, and I'm not saying that's it for all the educators, but I'm saying that's some of the impression I get out of some of the educators here.
I think you might have a point there. There seems to be an awful lot of educators. Maybe it's because they're used to standing in front of classrooms or something, but they really seem to like the sound of their own voice and don't always listen to what anybody else is saying. They're more into the old style education, which is the telling, rather than the supervisory role, you know, where they help enable kids to educate themselves, discover things for themselves. They still fall back to this sort of being on the podium and teaching and telling, and not always listening and not always receptive to progress. So I think they do fall down a bit there. It's like the ones who come in and, you know, if there's an argument that says, okay, well, come in World, build a virtual classroom and bring all your students in. But how do you just make a copy of your real world classroom and bring them in that way? I mean, it sounds boring. Why not use the architecture available in World to create a kind of a more interesting, a more creative environment for kids to learn in? But I think the ones that are the real culprits are the academics, who are educators in terms of speciality, but they probably don't actually, you know, they've probably got small groups of students, but they're just full of their speciality. And, you know, you put them on the stand and they just can't stop talking about their speciality. And, you know, sometimes that's of very little interest to the mainstream.
Well, you mean when they go into lecture mode, they're, you know, typical academic lecture mode. It's interesting to attend to some of these I don't know what to call them. I don't want to call them noobs per se, but maybe they've been in World for a few months, but they use their, you know, they know they do what they know, so they'll do a lecture on some subject matter, and they're just getting the hang of the fact that while people are talking, say in voice, that there might be 20 or 30 other people talking in the room, asking questions, and they haven't quite gotten a hold of feeding back on that question. They're used to talking and then fielding questions. So it's interesting to see how they adapt to that over, after a few months they start, stopping in mid-lecture and answering questions right away. Sort of like how musicians in between, you know, will talk almost in their own jams sometimes.
The experienced ones, I think, even if they're in voice and they're talking and they've got used to the idea of responding to chat, and so actually some of them are terrible. They actually watch chat too much and don't realise that maybe they're talking to camera or something. But it's amazed me today at the conference, just how many archetypal noobs I saw there. You know, with the standard just logged in for the first time hair and avatar. I must admit they were more the audience than anything else.
I think it's a jolly good turnout, and the place is spectacular.
It's lovely.
This conference, it's amazing.
The steampunk was the theme of the conference this year, and that's really coughed up some amazing architecture and well, just the architecture is wonderful.
Look, Bevan Whitfield is saying a lot of the educators are new people, and I think that is absolutely right. You've been talking about how many newbies visiting there. Just because you don't like the look of a newbie, and actually, I kind of take that as an insult, you know, because newbies are exactly that, and they just have to have time to get into appearance and edit. I never thought I'd hear myself offending a teacher, but that's what I'm doing.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to be offensive there. I was just making the observation that because I think Baird had said, you know, people have just been in here a few months, and I said, well, you know, it's even more today. People have probably just come in today. So no,
I was not born looking like this. Mal Burns, writer.
I looked like a noob for months. I really did. And I liked my noob look. It had the right colour hair and it had everything. And, you know, people were saying, you know, but they want to doll me up. And I was refusing because I just liked my noob look. But times change. And I've evolved in less than noob.
Well, I'm comfortable in my own skin.
Yeah. Or your two underskins, depending on which way we're wearing. Well, the quote's the second life. Okay, ladies and gentlemen,
Whitfield.
if you're watching our cameras on TV, folks, you will notice that Slim Warrior has done a vanishing act. It's probably no fault of hers. It's probably due to Second Life. We still do have her in voice here, but
I am here, actually.
Yes.
But I think it's because as I was crashing, I noticed what Disa was wearing, and it reminded me of a pair of curtains, and it shocked me so much I had to log off and go and get a drink.
Oh, you thought you were seeing things.
Looks like she's wearing a racing flag.
I didn't.
So
I might come back to the studio. I'm feeling a bit less grumpy now.
I don't know. I thought this was wind down, not wind up.
Well, she'll probably go log in 20 times, you know, and get a fail. So by the time she finally does get back, she'll be really grumpy.
No, I am actually going to come back to the studio. I've changed my mind now. I'll come back and be grumpy properly.
Did you eat all my cake?
Me? No, I'd never do that.
It just disappeared from in front of my face.
Yeah, I got rid of it.
Oh, see, it's Rob. See, it's you instantly blaming me for eating all the cake.
But you normally do, let's face it. Cake Slimmy
Right, it's coming back.
Or mouth to mouth.
No idea what that cake's about.
There she is. She's going to sit on the floor over there. Are you just going to grump there on the floor over there?
Yeah, I was going to be a grumpy audience member instead.
I got a topic that could bring up some grumpiness this week.
I'll go for it.
What do you guys?
Pile it on, Rob.
You said it again.
What do you guys think about Hamlet's blog post this week saying that Second Life users are the reason?
I just read that one.
Second Life users are what? Odd.
No, he wrote a blog post that the reason that his hypothesis is that Second Life users are so passionate that they strangle the life out of Second Life, and that they're so resistant to change that is what's holding Second Life back.
Yeah, and that's just
absolutely. I mean, I don't actually like the way he put it, but I mean, I sort of do agree with this. I mean, one thing that amazes me is I think that for those of us who use Second Life, you know, to extend our lives, as most of us here do anyway, you know, we're pioneers, you know. One day there'll be, you know, everybody will have an avatar, whether it's here or somewhere else, we don't know, but, you know, these things are the future. But we are in here at the moment as kind of pioneers, and I've always considered, not just me, but the pioneer spirit has been something that's open to change, and it does actually surprise me how many people seem to be very reactionary in Second Life. It's almost as though they've been in here a year or two, they've got used to their interface, they've got used to the way they do things, they've set up a nice little business, and instead of being a frontiersman anymore, they've become a reactionary old sob and moan when anything changes. So I did think Hamlet had a point there.
Well, I might agree with you that's that Second Life users may be against some changes, and that may be the perception. But when has Linden Lab ever not made any changes because of the residents being against it? Do you know what I'm saying? I find that hypothesis is not really true because Linden Lab doesn't really care what we think anyway. So how would us being resistant to change stop Second Life's growth? I really think that there's a lot of other list of things that stop Second Life's growth that are, more important to talk about. But
yeah, I tend to agree. I mean, Second Life, or Linden Lab, I should say, will carry on regardless. And they've got new management now. They seem to be making different kinds of changes. Whether those would be received well or not, I don't know. But they're going to make them anyway. They're going to adapt to their customers eventually. It might take them 5 years to wake up to the fact that every other grid in the world will be on hypergrid or something, and they'll only join it after 5 years, or maybe they never will. I mean, there's all sorts of things where you don't know what this platform is going to do. And actually, in that way, they're probably supported by a lot of residents who say, "Oh, we don't want change. We don't want, content to be across grids or anything like that." So. I don't think, I don't think the users can or do hold back Linden Lab and Second Life. The only sense in which they might is that if enough users moan publicly enough, then it damages the Linden Lab's platform.
Well, I absolutely think that. I absolutely think that happens.
Yeah.
I mean, if all those people were actually, but then I can already see the argument against this, but basically if all those people were able to be positive as opposed to negative, then obviously that would be a massive amount of good publicity. However, you have to say, well, what's at the bottom of the moaning, right? And it's not just about change, is it? And the moans will get louder if they're not addressed. And that doesn't mean actually doing everything that everybody asks you to do, but that if they're acknowledged, that, just acknowledged. But I suppose it becomes big.
I think Linden Lab have, considering they have built a platform which is the future of communications, or the prototype for it, as far as I'm concerned. It's ironic that they are a company who don't seem to be very good at communicating with what are effectively their customers.
Or each other?
Yeah, I mean, admittedly, there are several, there are at least several thousand active residents in Second Life at a given time. There's only 200 Lindens to go around, and they probably, almost all of them probably work in California hours. But, so they can't cope with everything. And, I have it on good authority from back in the days when Philip was CEO that Lindens progressively got more and more less inclined to come into Second Life because they couldn't get any work done because they were being interrupted all the while and pestered. And I've got to say, I can very well sympathize that with. I mean, if I want some peace and quiet now, virtually speaking, I log into my home on Reaction Grid.
So now we know where to find you.
Yeah, exactly. Well, you're welcome. Try out some other grids, But, if I want to socialize and get together with people, then I log out of Reaction Grid and I log into Second Life. I would hypergrid in, except I can't. But, different spaces for, I was going to say different spaces for different places. You get the idea, I use different spaces differently, and they're both immersive spaces, but one is like a tranquil, peace and quiet place I go, and the other is where I come to socialize and do work.
Well, exactly. I see this as the world, effectively. It's the same. I have the same attitude towards this as I do towards the element that I'm sitting in. And that is basically, I will choose one place to be my base, and then I will have a wander. I wander all over the place. I mean, in real life, and I do in here.
So, I just wanted to address the whole Hamlet thing again, just coming around. But from what the article said, a lot of the ex-Lindens were sort of, shall we say, down about. I don't know. How did it sort of blame the complainers? I guess it was sort of like a flip on shall we say, the loud minority of moaners.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know. I guess I try not to go on the forums too much unless it's actually like a subject matter that's sort of pertinent to all of us, so to speak, like some sort of change in tech or something like that. Mm-hmm. And I guess I noticed, we've got we have a lot of, shall we say, charismatic moaners, shall we say. And some of them are a little bit, maybe a little off-center, but brilliant, and some of them are just, like, really good. They're just, like, this side of, like, trolled, but not quite trolls. And then some of them are sorry, Foxy. Foxy's like, don't get personal. It's like, okay. There's a huge sort of like these sort of pockets of communities that have sort of evolved over eras and times, and from different generations of SL people. And there is resistance, I think, typically to a lot of stuff, but then again, there is a lot of adaptation, and I don't think that was addressed as much as it could have been in that particular article. But I'm sure that's Hamlet was writing an article with that slant at that time. And to be fair, he's an ex-employee who probably has similar feelings about that in a lot of ways too, because he was one of the earlier generations and probably had a lot of aspirations about SL, and then
I think you hit the nail on the head there, Baird. I feel like Hamlet has become a disillusioned person, and in a lot of ways, a lot of us are. I mean, I came in 2007, and I thought by now SL would be, the next big thing, but it hasn't gone that way. So I think he's looking for reasons for that. Maybe he's just trying to get a rise, which he did. I mean, was there 100 comments of people telling him he's wrong?
Yeah, exactly. Or debate about it.
But I mean, if you really look at what is holding Second Life back, you can point to a couple things, and it's not the complaining of the users. When 1 out of every 10 or 20 people comes into SL and only they stay, only 1 out of 20 people or whatever. I mean, that's not the residents holding it back. That's people coming in and not getting it, or the new user experience is not good. Or
they come across like a jerk in world, and that's another thing. We can talk about user experience all we want, but if you come in world and you meet someone unpleasant or psychopathic or sociopathic or manipulative or just plain old
or with an attachment,
yeah, exactly, or an uninvited attachment, that's going to turn people off, and there's not much you can do about that. And that's not just in virtual worlds, it's in Second Life, that's on the street, that's at the corner store, that's at the local bar, that's everywhere, right? So there's I guess you could talk for hours and hours and hours about the user, initial user experience till the cows come home, and it has been, and it will be. I think I don't want to open that kettle of fish right now because that's not what we're talking about. But I think we can say that I don't know.
I think there's crazy people, and there's people that that bitch about everything on every product and every platform.
And there are.
And they're going to be louder. They're going to be louder than people who are happy doing their own thing and not piping up,
I don't know whether because it's such a creative place, but there do seem to be an awful lot of overwhelming egos in Second Life, to be honest, which, I can talk or tweet louder than you. And, there's almost a fight for attention. Maybe it's a bit like the real world where you're in a community and either you want to go away and hide, or you want to go, or you want to make a loud noise and be the most prominent person. But it seems a bit that way. Now, a message from Simi, because you can now see Simi sitting in a chair, but we've lost her on our voice channel. So, Simi is saying she can only assume that the amount of cake she has eaten has weighed down her broadband connection, and we are trying to get her back, just in case you were wondering.
Aw.
And I'm going to get grumpy here. I'm going to go on a bit of a limb because I know people who hear me in Skype a lot probably know this already, but I really do get a bit grumpy about Hamlet's blog in general, since we've mentioned this article. A few months ago, Hamlet's blog almost entirely refocused on Blue Mars instead of Second Life. And now that's become a mobile platform. He doesn't seem to be doing much there anymore at all. And he seems to have made this mad dash back. He's trying to reclaim his territory as the chief blog of Second Life. But Hamlet probably comes up with about 30 posts a week on average. And I reckon at least half, if not 20 of them, are simply questions. In other words, it's a small paragraph and it's not really a blog. All he does is he makes a post and it is a question. What do the Second Life community think of this?
Very true.
And then he waits for the feedback to come and then he plays off the feedback. And most of it, Hamlet's blog is heavily monetized. So, he's obviously using things to get traffic. And I really wonder if that thing about, that headline we were just discussing just now is not actually just symptomatic of Hamlet, not the content of the blog, but it feels like a really sensationalist headline. It's almost as if he's thought, oh, I'll do a thing about this. That would get people to my blog. And therefore they'll think I have.
Well, he's doing a whole series now. I can't wait for the second one.
Yeah, I know, and I don't like, but Hamlet has obviously always supported Second Life, and he's a former Linden, but I don't want to be too critical, but I do think the direction he's taking, he seems, he really seems to be living in Second Life's past, and not really on the ball with the current state of the art, so to speak.
Well, you got to give him credit. It did catch attention, and actually, to be honest, regardless, even though I was saying like there are people who are like borderline trolls and stuff, at least the comments that were running on that particular article were of interest. So yeah, you're right. He's selling soap, right? He's got to make a buck, so and sort of keep it borderline journalism, which is what he's doing. So it's. At least he's got people talking.
He sort of pulled Humble into that, and I'm sure Humble isn't too happy, but at some point they have to either address that, because it seemed like Hamlet was saying, I was speaking to Humble, I said this, and he agreed.
Yeah, I think it was a very quick Skype call or something rather than an intensive interview. Anyway, welcome back, Slimmy!
Thank you very much.
Well, you've got something
full, like I said, from all Kate.
About. You lost your voice again.
It's all right. I was having a good old moan offline, believe me, but you missed it all. I'll save it for next week.
Actually, we should be wrapping up.
I'm sorry?
We should. Now that I've come back, it's time to stop the show.
Yeah, it's time to finish.
Well timed, I say.
We started late, didn't we? 20 minutes late?
Well,
No,
we were a bit
6
late,
minutes.
so but you're right. It's time we started rounding off. Apparently, this is not good news. We've actually just lost some viewers on the web, but we suspect that we've just scared 6 educators off the stream. But that's by the way, I've pinched it. Anyway, what we like to do when we round up here, folks, is regardless of the topics, and really we covered quite a bit today, that we've discussed, and any theme we have, which we didn't have, if you see what I mean, let's go around our guests individually and just ask them what has been getting on their tits, some other expression, during the past.
I'm sure I want to know what's getting on people's tits.
It can be issues, or it can be organic issues, or even robotic issues if you want. So I'm going to start with, I'll start with Baird.
Oh no! Oh god, I'm still laughing on that. All right. What's getting on my thing? I guess it's just I'm sick of mainstream generic coverage. I'm sick of. I actually took some time and watched a real life television news broadcast about stuff, and I was kind of revolted by the lack of information and like it's a sunny day, happy St. Patrick's Day, a nuclear power plant, your backyard just leaked, but everybody's out drinking and everything's great, and it's just like, it sort of drove me a little bit nuts to see to experience that, and I'm mad that they haven't caught up. I know they're trying to keep their economic model and they're adapting as best they can, but it's just frustrating to.
It is.
See
They
it.
just go on and on, don't they? In fact, I think it's a couple of weeks ago now that Hillary Clinton had returned to the States from the Middle East somewhere. I forget which one she was in. And she immediately, at the moment she got back, I was actually rather brave of her. She was slamming off US media for commercialism and, negativity and not enough variety. And she was actually praising Al Jazeera as a breath of fresh air.
Yeah, exactly.
It was funny coming from the Secretary of State. Anyway, over to Rob. What's been bugging you this week, Rob?
Probably a lot of things. Hard to pick one thing that's been bugging me. Probably that I got to watch my parents' dog, and he smells like trash and everything. He's an old dog. He's an old dog. He pisses and craps about every half an hour, and he smells like a garbage dump. So yes, that's what's pissing me off this week.
Well, yeah, I guess I can see that. Poor dog. Okay, there's that.
What's
What?
pissing me off? Well, actually, the state of my apartment.
Virtually
I've
or
just-
organically?
Yeah, no, in real life. I've kind of turned around to look at it. And
Very unwise.
yes, it was very unwise. It's effectively a nice apartment, but you wouldn't know under all the wires. There's wiring everywhere.
Is that all that's in that apartment?
And this wiring and books.
I
A lot of books.
Yeah, lots of. Robustus has been to this apartment, haven't you, Rob? So he's seen the books.
It
Or some of
definitely explains a lot.
I didn't take
What do
it.
you mean?
Is it a labyrinth in there?
My apartment is also full of books and wires. The only trouble is I can go one more. Mine is also covered with about 3 inches of dust. And it is rapidly declining. And I've got to agree, there come those moments like when you switch a big strong light on or something and you just go, uh-oh, got to do something about this sometime. Well, spring will be here soon. Have a spring clean. And that will be the same case next year, Oh, I
Got
don't know.
2 storage things full of books as well.
Oh, I love books. Although I don't approve of wasting paper these days. Okay, Slimmy. So you can also give out our blog and everything else. And have we got any guests lined up to announce for next week or not? And everything. What's on your mind that we haven't talked about yet?
Well, the thing that has annoyed me, actually, or something that makes me very grumpy, is when you have a packet of sweets, like, hard-boiled sweets, and you offer them to somebody, and they say, "Can I have the red one?" It really annoys me, because anytime I offer somebody sweet, they only want the red one. And of course, there's probably only one red one in the whole packet of sweets.
I only want the green one, Slim.
Oh, well, that's okay. Then you're welcome. You can have
Yeah.
the Smarties in the green
I
one.
want the green one.
Offer them to men and tell them the green ones are red.
But it's always the same, isn't it? If you
Because
offer
they can't
somebody
see
a
it.
packet of sweets, they always want a particular colour. But for me, it's the red one, and I like the red ones best. So I'm selfish and I want to keep them for myself. But I can't because I've offered them to somebody else. Anyway,
Well-
it makes me
Take
really
them out of the
grumpy.
packet.
Open the packet, take all the red ones
them
out.
out.
Stab them.
Yeah, exactly.
Right, what? Standing in front of them. So I open the packet, take out all the red ones and say, "Hey, what would you like a sweet?"
Yes, exactly. Would you like a piece of cake, Slimmy?
If you would like to be on Grumpy Old Avatars as a guest and come in and join us with your moans and groans each Friday at 3 p.m. Second Life time, please get in touch with me or the rest of the team. If you would like to follow us on Twitter, it's at Grumpy Old Avatar. We also have a blog, which, of course, every week we're far too grumpy to write anything on it. You can follow us at blogspot.com, Grumpy Old Avatars. And we look forward to seeing you at some point in the future where we shall all be very, very grumpy. And, yeah, great to have you guys on the show. It's been fun this evening.
Thanks for having us.
Have a piece of cake.
Yeah, indeed it has. It's been great fun. The time has actually flown completely. So, for those of you listening at home and indeed in the audience here, we have some slightly bad news. Is that you won't be able to join us next week. We are taking a necessarily week off, but we will be back the week after. So, we're not at the end of the season or anything. We just, for technical
spring break?
reasons. Yeah, call it a spring break or whatever. So, we won't be here next week.
Break.
We won't be here next week, but we will be here the week after. So it just ends for me to thank everybody. So I'll thank my guests first. Thank you, Baird.
Thank you.
And thank you, Rob.
Thank you.
And of course, thank you to Slimmy.
I'm just wondering whether I left my false teeth in that bit of cake, actually.
Try it and see.
Don't swallow the teeth. Yes, and goodbye, Deezer.
Bye.
Thank you. And so we'll be back same time, same place in 2 weeks' time, and we look forward to seeing you then, by which time we should have built up a whole new mound of grumpiness to inflict upon you. Bye for now.